Okay, good morning, everyone. We are being recorded right now. Thank you for joining us for water issues on this, at least in St. Paul, kind of an overcast, drizzly-ish morning here at the end of June. Our guest presenter today is Margo Ashmore, who is a Green Corps member serving with the City of Minneapolis Solid Waste and Recycling Division. Is it a division? I don't know. Other other agencies use different words with reuse initiatives. Before serving with the City of Minneapolis, she marketed deconstruction services for Better Futures Minnesota, which led to helping with the 2025 Build Reuse Conference being in St. Paul in August 4th through 6th. Little plug there. A former newspaper publisher in the Mississippi watershed area, water quality has been top of mind for Margo, and she is the president of the Reuse Minnesota board. And with that, Margo, I will hand it over to you. We still see your slides, so you should be all set.
All right, thank you for having me. This presentation started as a challenge to convince a neighborhood group that the work that I'm doing at the City of Minneapolis Solid Waste and Recycling, which is a division of Public Works, my service is focused on reuse. It actually relates to their goal of cleaning up a local lake. Simply put, reuse serves water and water quality by lowering the demand for new materials and the water and energy needed to produce and transport new goods. So, end of story, you're dismissed. I'm going to wander around through a number of different topics. As professionals, our work can be so siloed into areas of expertise. But what if we had tools to understand more about how these areas fit together, affect each other, and most importantly, to communicate that with to others? I hope today to reinforce some facts, provide some anecdotes, give you some tools to help others act on this realization that everything environment is related. We each have the power to change things through our relationships. So let's help get beyond our own footprints, whether those be expressed as a carbon footprint or the muck left behind as we put on the big boots and wade into the swamp. Let's see. My city service as a Green Corps member is dedicated to reuse initiatives. I have 4 main buckets of work. I'm running a quarterly data on what goes back into the back of our garbage trucks. So for 2 weeks, we have our garbage haulers look, write down what they are putting in the back of the truck that is a bulky item, like a couch or a chair, or the types of things that are not just dumping the refuse containers. So these are things that we are now either incinerating or sending to metal scrap. I am surveying users of our South Transfer Station for customer feedback and seeing what they drop off, with the expectation of setting up a North Transfer Station that will collect more reusable materials and better sort that which can be recycled. I'm working with city property services and procurement on what to do with unwanted office supplies within the system and small equipment, and also an environmental purchasing policy. I feel strongly that government needs to lead by example. And actually, I would love, and I have a pitch on my very last slide, if any of you have insights on the economic impact of environmental purchasing policies, I need to, use that kind of information to help sell the idea of getting people involved in that. And finally, I've been engaging with communities all over the city, like the one that invited me to give this presentation first, to do swap events where people can donate stuff that others take, and that people in need or want can take what they need or want for free. This has included neighborhood groups, a Girl Scout troop, garden clubs, and farmers markets. It sounds like a simple concept, but there are some hints and best practices that make a swap a good experience for all involved. So in the picture, you see garden tool swaps as the top 2, and then there was a toy swap, which is the big boat there, and a swap of puzzles, games, and cookbooks. That was very popular, and it's actually been just recently repeated and will be repeated again in Northeast. So the committee and I found that we had more interests in common than originally thought. Chris, the chair, eventually personally joined Reuse Minnesota, the nonprofit organization that educates, advocates for, and promotes reuse businesses, organizations, and governments that support reuse. As mentioned, I am currently serving as president of the Reuse Minnesota board, and you may know our executive director, Emily Barker. She has done numerous presentations for various groups. For the past couple of years, we've offered a lot of mending clinics and classes, one of the most popular being zipper repair. Did you know that a lot of faulty zippers can be repaired? There is no need to replace. We are now offering fix-it clinics across the state in 5 different counties. And like with the fix-it clinics of Hennepin County, Ramsey County, practically every county in the metro area, we don't just swoop in and fix stuff for people. We work with each area to recruit fixers and volunteers so that they can perpetuate the program. Fix-it clinics as a whole do not just fix stuff for people, though that does end up happening in many cases since the fixers have the specialized tools. But the idea is that the people are right there learning something about fixing their stuff, which is really empowering. If you can use the reaction tool on Teams to let me know if you have ever participated in a fix-it clinic. I did. That's me with the scale. We had 2 scales that we are using at Solid Waste and Recycling to weigh things at our swaps. And the monitors weren't working. So you can't get the readout of what the thing weighs. And we were pretty sure that the weighing mechanism itself is pretty simple. So it must be the connection between the monitor and the scale. And sure enough, you can see in the picture at the top that the ground wire had gotten disconnected. And so the fixers helped me. I did all this stuff. They just directed me. I took the little screws out. I made sure that they, were laid out in a box in the same order that they were going to go back. They helped me with the solder gun. I actually used the solder gun to unsolder everything and then resolder everything back where it belonged. And I tell you, I had to have a picture taken of myself because it was so empowering that I did this. I really did this. And, it made me think, I could probably obtain some of those tools that the fixers had. And, I could then help people fix stuff. So anyways, between Reuse Minnesota's Fix-It clinics and Fix-It programs that already exist, about half of the state will have access to a Fix-It clinic in their own county or a neighboring county. So again, how does this relate to water? Almost everything that compromises water quality ties back to our consumption and our excess. For decades, we have acidified our rain with the pollutants from industry that provides our things. Though there has been progress on these fronts, the use of water in industrial processing has raised water temperature and polluted it, which contributes to climate change, the overall rise in temperature and weather extremes. We may indeed not win this fight to keep the earth habitable and make living here equitable for humans. But UN Water suggests fix water, fix climate change. It's all interrelated. Even before finding all the resources and insights that I hope to share with you today, I faced what a lot of us face, the quandary of how to decide what is our own best fit and how to keep moving forward, avoiding the paralysis of analysis, the doom and gloom. When we talk with others, particularly, how to offer motivation, hope, call to action, and the tools with which to act. There's been some good research about climate anxiety. The what's the use when the end of the world comes, we're going to all die anyway, so why should I care about recycling or jumping on a plane? Reuse Minnesota holds a conference in October. It's the 22nd of October this year. Last year, a wonderful popular speaker talked about climate anxiety and how to address it. Her name is Elizabeth Padilla, and she is at Catalyst Mental Health. And the message was similar to the message that we heard at the Eco Experience at the State Fair last year. I forget who the presenter was, but the message was be in nature, be in community, do what you can do, and do it with others. So there are many individual actions that can be taken in the area of reuse. I'll share some tips and tricks later, and I would invite you all, starting now, to put your ideas in the chat about what individuals can do in the area of reuse. The waste hierarchies. Reuse, which you probably all do to some degree, helps prevent the use and eventual waste of new resources, energy, and water. Prevention is the highest on the waste hierarchy. Skip the stuff, refuse. So whether you're going with the MPCA model or the International Zero Waste Alliance, the idea of not creating waste just makes sense. And that once things are here, use that stuff. So stuff is here. What do we mean by reuse? It's not just secondhand stores or thrift stores, swapping, donating items. It means repairing items, as mentioned about the fix-it clinics, mending textiles, renting or borrowing things rather than buying. And again, Reuse Minnesota is a statewide nonprofit focused on promoting, educating, and advocating for all forms of reuse. Minneapolis Solid Waste and Recycling is stepping up to support that top end of the waste hierarchy by focusing my work plan around reuse through its collection and drop-off programs and encouraging and empowering neighborhood and community organizations and individuals to host events where items get swapped and other custom needs that may arise. For example, I helped promote Sisterhood Boutique's Galentine's Day clothing drive to get items for their store, which supports nonprofit education, preparing girls for careers in sustainable fashion. Another example, at Holiday on 44th in North Minneapolis, their craft fair, I tabled with information about upcycling and reuse. There's a lot of craft use of items that perhaps could be recycled, but are being kept out of the waste stream by giving them another use. I helped Audubon neighborhood with 2 pet gear swaps. We had the garden tool swaps all over town and probably collected a ton of tools and supplies. I mentioned games, puzzles, and cookbooks. They're almost right up there with clothing swaps as a popular entry point into the world of swapping. And pictured here, I tabled at a Lyndhurst forum on textile waste. There is a lot of interest in textiles. Everybody asks when I table, what do we do with textiles, like socks that are no longer usable. We've already patched them a zillion times, or, it's something that has paint on it. And there were exhibits about this at the state fair as well. And the truth of it is we really don't have a good answer as to where to send this stuff. Because the further you dig, the more you realize that a lot of these places have to admit that they may end up just incinerating the materials anyway. And so, right now the best solution is to put them in the trash. So yeah, the water cost of a $5 or $10 or $22 t-shirt is about 700 gallons, most of which is to raise the cotton, according to many sources on the internet. There's all sorts of shocking info on this set of slides, for which I credit my supervisor, Kelly Kish, for compiling much of what you see here. Shops and online stores boast an endless supply of new trendy clothes. It can be difficult to consider the inputs and process that go into making the clothes. Fashion companies have increased production. Before the 1990s, they used to create 2 collections per year. Now some offer between 12 and 24 distinct collections, according to Business Insider. This overproduction of clothing goes hand in hand with consumer purchasing spikes. It's been found that people bought 60% more garments in 2014 than in 2000, and people kept those items for only half as long, again, according to Business Insider. And a most recent article in that same publication tackled the effects of tariffs, slowing this down a bit, mostly affecting the middle market, luxury adjacent goods that are priced in the middle. They forecast that the rich will keep buying, but tone down their colors in order to not show off their wealth so much. The resale sector will benefit. At Reuse Minnesota, when we first heard about the tariffs and such, kind of said, yay, silver lining. It'll help promote reuse. And Business Insider, April 2025, concluded, if this carries on like it is, we are just going to keep wearing beige. So if you would please use reactions again to show if you are rethinking your use of textiles or consumption in general due to tariffs. Right. So yeah, it takes a lot of water to make clothes. 2,000 gallons of water need to produce a pair of jeans, according to TED Ed and Business Insider. That is enough water for one person to drink at least the recommended 8 cups per day for 3.5 years. Cotton is a water-intensive crop to grow. Fun fact, the recent increase in demand for clothing has already threatened our water supply. In 50 years, the Aral Sea in Asia, what used to be the world's 4th largest lake, has dried up. It's almost entirely due to nearby cotton farming. In Texas alone, cotton accounts for 3.68 million acres of land, according to True Cost. Cotton also requires the most pesticide use of any crop. Pesticides are toxic and threaten the health of farm workers and local ecosystems. Source, the New York Times. Organic cotton does not use pesticides, but it's not popular. It currently makes up less than 1% of the cotton produced worldwide. Textiles create a lot of water pollution directly. Cloth dyeing is the world's largest polluter. It accounts for 20% of all industrial water pollution worldwide. You have likely seen the We Are Water exhibit, and again, give reaction if you have. It is traveling the state. It is currently on Nicollet Mall through August 10th. I'm looking forward to volunteering there. Yay! Some reactions. Artist Sarah Nassif, who is artist in residence at the Mississippi Watershed Management Organization, my hometown, has her loom at the exhibit. She has shown how weaving and cloth connect us to water. She holds workshops in natural indigo dyeing of fabric. And if I understand it correctly, it is the natural process where insoluble suspended dye adheres to fabric without needing the chemical bite that is necessary for all the other colors. Unfortunately, she's told us that the blue jean dyes used today, which are indigo colored, are chemical based and are harmful to us and the environment. So contaminated water threatens ecosystems and wildlife. It can also harm drinking water sources for local communities. A lot of clothing is made of synthetic textile materials like polyester, and the washing of these materials can be harmful. It can release 500,000 tons of microfibers into our oceans every year. About 35% of all ocean microplastics come from the laundering of synthetic clothing. And then there's packaging plastic. Extended producer responsibility is on its way, yet to be seen if it will just be another cost passed along to consumers or if it will result in less waste and harm. Plastics pollute our streams and lakes visibly and invisibly, from bottle and bag litter to the breakdown of microplastics that are now found everywhere, even in human bodies. Friends of Lake Hiawatha, since they started weighing, have collected over 10,000 pounds of litter in their Earth Day cleanups. They collected over 320 pounds of litter in 3 hours alone on Earth Day in 2022. 1,500 water bottles are consumed per second in the US. It takes 3 times the amount of water to manufacture a water bottle than it does to fill it. Plastics littered in the environment fragment into microplastics. In the environment, fish, birds, and animals confuse microplastics as food. Plastic has been found in the stomachs of over 90% of seabirds tested and 100% of sea turtles. Scientists estimate that by weight, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish by 2050, according to the Natural Resources Defense Council. New research estimates an average of 8.8 million tons of plastic flow into oceans each year. This equates to one dump truck full of plastic emptying directly into the ocean every day for a year, according to National Geographic. In 2016, researchers from the Rochester Institute of Technology estimated that nearly 22 million pounds of plastic debris enter the Great Lakes from the US and Canada each year. Half of the plastic is going into Lake Michigan, followed by Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, Lake Huron, and Lake Superior. I'm actually from the Duluth area, so nice to hear that we are at the bottom of the list, but oh my gosh, the amount of plastic in Lake Michigan equates to 100 Olympic-sized swimming pools full of plastic bottles, according to Waste Dive and Science Daily. And there's salt. Salt from facilitating transportation pollutes fresh water permanently. It's not just passenger vehicles. Transportation is a resource used in the manufacture and sale of stuff. So if we embrace using what we have and embrace upcycling or reuse over consumption, we put less demand on transportation. Of course, those roads are going to be proactively salted for other drivers. So to be really effective, all reuse advocates could work with water advocates on preventing the use of salt. Like maybe we just don't travel during snowstorms, less reliance on global supply chains. This is one way that consumers can do more than feel good about their individual choices. They can advocate and testify at government hearings about legislation of all sorts. Probably not telling you anything you don't already know. Before wrapping up, I want to give some context around general trash reuse and recycling. Again, asking perhaps for some help in advocating across silos. While Minneapolis, for example, does a decent job of recycling, we could do better. And I've heard similar statistics for other cities that really about only a third of what is in the trash is actually trash and doesn't have some other place that it could be diverted. And in Minneapolis, this waste could be diverted from the HERC, where it is incinerated and contributes to acid rain. So here are the percentages: 38.3% of organics and yard waste. The majority was edible food and food scraps. Now, how do we know that it was edible food? Well, that's kind of a judgment call. But if you see a whole apple in the garbage, you can guess that if that apple had been eaten right when it came from the grocery store, it would not have ended up in the trash. Hennepin County has been running their Trash or Cash campaign. They send an email out every Friday called Fridge Check Fridays to make people aware that not only could they save the planet, but save money by just eating the food that they've already bought and not throwing away the approximately 40% of it with all its related water, energy, and material costs. At one point, I was asked to think about tying reuse to pollinators. What's more natural than making sure you only buy what you will use and then use what you bought, as the pollinator population is decreasing due to various factors? We need to not waste the food that they make available. The most popular calculation is that pollinators are responsible for 1/3 of the food supply. So if we just used our 40%, we would make up for some of the losses that are happening in the pollinator world. 13.3% of what we find in the trash is recyclable. We could do a lot better with the easy ones. Aluminum cans, which become new cans within 60 days. Only 51% of aluminum cans were recycled by consumers. And glass bottles, both are infinitely recyclable. Steel cans can be steel cans again and often go into other steel products. 7% of the waste stream is textiles, as we mentioned before. Textiles being a quandary. 6.2% are drop-off items, which means stuff like hazardous waste and plastic bags and films or other materials for which we have specific markets or ways of disposing more safely through drop-off options, but that people have put in the trash. So we also get a lot of questions about what happens to my recycling? Challenges of, why should I recycle? It just gets thrown away anyway and, ends up in some third world country in a burn pile. Well, that may be true in some areas of the world or national. We're often combating national news stories that make many people wonder if their recycling does get recycled. There's a kernel of truth in it, but in our region, this is the truth. The graphics show where Eureka Recycling's material goes, where Minneapolis, St. Paul, and a few other cities' recyclables are processed. After recycling is picked up from your house, it is brought to Eureka Recycling, where it is sorted into about 12 different categories. From there, it's sold to companies to be made into new products. In 2024, 75% of recycling was made into new items right here in Minnesota. 95% stayed in the upper Midwest and 100% stayed in North America. So we are actually kind of winding down here. We silo for survival, for the day-to-day manageable chunks, our little scrap of the earth, how we're going to take care of it. We should occasionally look at the big picture and help others find how they can affect the environment from wherever they are. That is one thing that stuck with me from a panel that I attended put on by the Women's Environmental Network, that you don't have to have a job in sustainability. In fact, you may be able to do more good from outside the field. Any company or organization can stand to have an environmental book club or service group, sustainability committee. So if you know people outside of the water field, outside of the reuse field, but who are interested in environmental issues, please encourage them to do just that. Make a difference from where they are. So at this point, I think I would like to open it for questions and reactions to these top tips, which honestly, I just sat down one morning and said, okay, what is a good top 10? I didn't spend a whole lot of time saying, oh, these are the best top 10. So I take it there's probably some stuff in the chat and we can go from there.
Right. Thank you so much. That was a very interesting talk. We don't currently have any questions in the chat, but for folks who have them, please put them in there. Or if you would like to raise your hand or unmute to ask your question, you can feel free to do that too. We do have a comment from Mark that says, I highly encourage people to take a tour of the Eureka recycling facility if you get the chance. It's very eye-opening.
It is indeed. Yep. And I would love to get into the HERC, but apparently they are they're kind of down for maintenance right now or something. And then they're also not giving as robust tours of the facility as they used to. Another great place to tour is SET composting. And I think Dakota Prairie may also be giving tours of their new facility as that's just getting going now.
Right. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, but typically once I start to say that, that's when the questions pop up. So we will give folks a second to type those in there.
It takes a while to type. People could just raise hands as well.
Mm-hmm.
Great presentation. I saw that. Thank you. And it has been recorded, right? So
yep.
I might like to re-record it because I feel like I've been kind of today.
Oh no, it was great.
A lot of stumbles. I'm used to having to say things in 10 minutes or less. And so the original presentation was 10 minutes and it was like, okay, how to fill an hour.
Here's a question from Emily. Do you have any suggestions for where to find this information to share with the public, friends, family outside the MPCA?
Well, I guess each portion of what I presented, came from a source of some sort. So is there any more specific of what you're looking to, what stood out most to you as being, oh, we got to know this? That's something
Emily,
about
feel free
gardening.
to unmute or if you
Yeah.
would like to clarify your question at all.
Yeah, I see the comment of if people gardened more, they would compost more. Would it be worth the effort to encourage gardening? I don't know. There is something about gardening that actually putting your hands in the earth or putting your feet in the earth, it truly grounds you. I heard somewhere that, 20 minutes of putting your bare feet on grass is one of the most rejuvenating things that you can do. So, there is more than just an earth benefit to gardening. And vegetable gardening can be frustrating because the rodents will come and take one bite out of your prized tomato and then leave it. And then it's up to you whether you want to take and use that or if you want to throw that in your compost. Okay, Emily says mostly general education about reuse, but I'll certainly check out some of those sources from each slide for specifics. I could send you the actual transcript of my, because obviously I was reading. I can send you that as well. And Reuse Minnesota, reUseMN.org has a lot of good information. It's a rather level dense website in that you do need to go to every button and explore what's there. There is a lot of stuff there. Some of it is members only and a lot of it is available to the general public. Yes, growing your own food to make you inclined to actually use it before it goes bad. I could agree there. Yeah, and there are people who garden and know that they have excess, but they don't want to do the canning. They just had fun growing it. And so they put it out on a free table in their yard and their neighbors can come by and pick it up. Or, gardening through one of these donation gardens can get a person interested in gardening without committing the space and time and resources in their own garden. You know, okay, how does recycling sorting work? Thinking of how messy commingling recycling is and how trash non-recyclables. Is there a measure of carbon and water footprint of recycling? Maybe specifically for, say, a plastic water bottle. Yeah, I don't have the actual statistics, but it does just make logical sense that that is why recycling is further down on that hierarchy than reuse, because there is water and energy cost to all recycling. And I think MPCA has some good stats on that. I remember in our training for GreenCorps, there were some good slides. Christina Villela probably has those. I think that was from her presentation. Okay, is there anything I missed? I am looking at the chat now.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh,
think we've
what
touched
role
on
does the
everything.
trash sorting facilities play in getting materials out for recycling, such as the sorting site in
Mm.
Ramsey, Washington? I am not as familiar with Ramsey, Washington as with Minneapolis, but like the MRFs, the material recovery facilities, they do some, picking of items that are not supposed to be in the trash. Unfortunately, they can't get all of them. And so, the best solution is to not contaminate to begin with. And I'm really not sure what they do with their, with the materials that they pull out. Like, I think scrap metal, yeah, they'll sell a bunch of scrap metal to Northern Metals or whatever. But again, it's not cost benefit efficient for them to just say, oh yeah, just put any kind of crap in this, in your bin and we'll sort it out, because these conveyor belts that go by so quickly that it is possible that they're going to miss, some of these things. And, the biggest thing, I guess I would say, about preparation of recyclables for any materials recovery facility is do not put them in plastic bags and do not put loose plastic in your recycling. Because what happens with it is, if it's bagged, even if it's recycling, the people at the plant can't tell that all that is in that bag is recycling, and they will put it aside as trash. And so, all your good efforts, and you think you're being, good at compartmentalizing things, it doesn't work in the mechanical sorting facilities that we have. There is some human intervention, but yeah, and then if plastic materials end up going further through this sorting, and what Mark said about taking a tour of the of the facility, really makes a lot of sense. If it gets further on, it actually tangles up around these sort screens that they have. These are fast moving things that kind of juggle all of the other recyclables to allow things like the heavier cans to, drop into a certain place, and for less heavy plastics to be kicked into a different stream. Plastic winds around that mechanism, and it takes 2 person hours every time they have a break to, it's like 4 people working half an hour because everybody else is on break, to cut those things out of the screens and get the machines, working again. Yeah, makes me crazy how many people use bags for recyclables. And even, people think that it's okay to use, what do you call it? Craft paper bags. And in a way it is better than plastic, because it's easier to, again, separate the two. But what actually happens is that a lot of times a bag full of recyclables will get crushed in the truck that's delivering it, and then it comes out as one big glob, and again, has to be, separated. So unfortunately, a lot of us who grew up with the original recycling, put it all in categories. We are still thinking that that's what we're supposed to do, and we're not. We're supposed to just throw it all so that the machine can sort it. Well, and I can tell you that if you live in Minneapolis, eventually we are going to have another campaign to educate people about recycling properly and recycling more. We're hiring an ad agency to do a thing. So, there is already and I think this is focused in many different counties, the Recycling Exists campaign, which uses mythical characters to say basically, recycling is not a myth. It does, use recycling because it's not a myth. So, various entities have attempted to tackle this problem with mass education, but I can also tell you that we have probably reached more people more effectively. I would say, the 2 things: more effectively, not so much more people maybe, with one-on-one. It's people going, oh, really? Oh, geez, I've been doing it wrong all this time. It's like, yes, it's not the recycling of the 1970s or 80s or, whatever. And so, it makes sense to read those annual, yes, thanks, Mark, for the Recycling Exists. it makes sense to read your little booklet that we send out every year. Apparently, we send out a mailer that's like a trifold every other year, and then every other off year, we send this huge booklet that Hennepin County produces, which gives the rundown of all of the, all of the things for recycling that are new. Like black plastics. At one time, people thought they could recycle black plastics, but now we can't. And then, do you know the 125? This is the sign for love in American Sign Language. And coincidentally, it is also plastics number 1, number 2, and number 5 in the chasing arrows, which you can barely read on the bottom of a lot of things. Those are the only recyclable plastics that have markets. This is another myth that a lot of people have, that they think that if it has that symbol on it, it is recyclable. In some cases, it means that it is made with recyclable material, but the number that's in there is the RIN. I forget what that stands for, but it is a number that tells you what the plastic is. And only the 1, 2, and 5 currently are recyclable, which means that someone will buy it, that there is a market, and that it is chemically, able to be turned into something else. What prevents the other plastics from being recyclable? There are 2 kinds of plastic. One is the kind that can be melted down and made into pellets, and the pellets made into new things. The other kind is thermoset, which means that all that can happen with it is that it could be burned. If you were to apply heat to it, it would just burn. And so, when people say, oh, geez, only 10% of all plastics that have ever been manufactured are being recycled, they're actually correct, because a lot of the stuff, like, the hard arms of our chairs, the plastic in our mouses, in our hard consumer goods, those are like number 7s or number 8s or number 6s. I'm just throwing out numbers here. I forget which ones are the thermosets, but they are other permanent plastics that really don't have that easily recyclable component. Like I believe yogurt containers and water bottles are among the most easily melted down and made into other things. Okay, anything else I've been missing?
I don't think so. I think you have touched on all of the questions that have been put in the chat.
Yeah, and some good comments. Let's see. Oh, yes, Mark. Yes, Allison Cameron is on my list of people to contact, and I have already talked to John Schrader. Actually, John is thinking that he would like to see a municipality be a test case for environmental purchasing policies, and may want to work with us on that. So, yay. Let's see. Great.
If anyone has any additional questions, we can, put them in the chat. Feel free to unmute. Otherwise, if everyone has exhausted their questions about recycling and reuse and all of that good stuff we've talked about, we can wrap it up 10 minutes early today. But
right. I actually just have a couple slides that you have my contact information.
Perfect.
This is promoting the swap that I mentioned before. We'd love to see any of you at the Northeast Farmers Market, July 26th. It goes from 9 to 1. And if you have games, puzzles, or cookbooks that you would like to pass along, or want to get some new recipes or whatever, cookbooks for the least taken category, let's say. We had about 40% of the cookbooks left over. but I did find some markets for them. So I'm starting from scratch again. Plastic Free July is coming up, and that is one you should probably Google for, because I forget who is sponsoring it. It's not the same platform as the eco challenges that we've had through Hennepin County and Ramsey. There are various fix-it clinics coming up. There is an All About Zippers class happening June 29th. Sign up through Reuse Minnesota. And then, of course, the We Are Water exhibit on Nicollet Mall until August 10th. I don't know what agency policies are on volunteering, but they do need more volunteers. I think there will always be some staff, so the space will be open, but there is room for volunteering. And Sienna Ecker, a fellow GreenCorps member, has been in charge of that. So that's pretty cool. We've gotten to do some really, I think, important stuff. This is my contact information. As I will be staying in the field, I'm also giving you my personal contact information for after I'm done with the GreenCorps service. And again, looking for information on economic impact of environmental purchasing policies. We do these presentations for, even like Monday, we did a presentation for City of Minneapolis employees. We've also managed to get included in the new employee training types of things, with our Let's Talk Trash. A lot of the stuff that I reeled off today is stuff that Kelly and or Angelo are available to present to anyone who wants to listen. We have gone outside of our county. Kelly is very engaging and willing to go places. So feel free to use us as a resource. And with that, yes, I am done unless anything else has come to mind.
All right. We don't have anything additional in the chat, so I think we are probably good to wrap up for today. Thank you so much, Margo. This was a wonderful presentation, so informative, so useful for people's everyday lives. So it's been wonderful having you, and we appreciate your time this morning. And everybody enjoy the rest
from
of your
Candace.
rainy
Thank you.
Thursday.
Didn't realize you were on the call. All right, take
Thanks,
care.
everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.